So is AI worth the extra cost? Yes is not always the default answer. Let's talk about it. So welcome back to Dave is Not AI. I'm Dave, an AI expert and an AI skeptic. Let's get started. So what I did was basically, took my experience. I'm an AI architect by trade. So in other words, I help enterprises, and I did this when I worked for a large professional service company. I've done this the majority of my career, help them through architecting IT systems. Now that could be cloud computing, cloud-based systems, but obviously for the last, 10 years, I've been focused on AI, specifically generative AI, and also now agentic AI. And the ability to create a business case or really kind of determine when these kinds of systems should be used is part of the problem. And what I'm seeing now is kind of a default, almost knee-jerk reaction to building new systems to always use AI capabilities, either generative AI systems, either light, heavy, and medium use, and then now obviously moving to agentic. And there's a cost to doing that. Those systems, whether it's a generative AI system or an agentic AI system, as we'll see later in this video, are going to be tremendously more expensive in building the system. So if you're solving the same problems, in many cases using traditional development tools, traditional development approaches, you could be a better option for you if you're able to solve the business problem. In other words, create a minimum viable system that's able to live up to the expectations of the business issues you're looking to solve, and therefore able to build these systems with the minimum costs that's going to return them more value back to the business. And that's what it's all about. So as an experiment, I built a cost comparison model to move the AI conversation out of the hype into the hard numbers. Many organizations talk about generative and agentic AI as if it were a free upgrade to existing systems rather than substantial new investments with real financial trade-offs. So what I'm trying to drive here is a discussion around what this stuff costs versus the more traditional approaches. Now, I understand in many cases we're going to build AI systems because AI is going to be the preferred technology because it's going to provide the business with a force multiplier. In other words, it's able to do things above and beyond what traditional systems can do. And I think that's perfectly fine. But there has to be a business case as such to make that decision, because if you're forcing AI, either agentic or generative AI, into the solution set, that's always going to cost you a lot more money, as we're going to see in the table that I put together, and basically modeled a traditional approach, an approach using generative AI tools and development approaches and technologies, and then an agentic approach. And look at the cost differences for building exactly the same system. So by putting traditional development, generative AI, and agentic AI side by side using realistic ranges, I wanted to show that each step up in sophistication carries a significant cost premium. So this was an exercise designed to force a simple question: when do these higher costs pay for themselves in measurable, trackable business outcomes that stakeholders can trust? And that should be a core question that you're hearing more and more of these days. When I'm going to conferences, I'm not having people question the value of this technology. They're bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And by hell or high water, they're going to build their next system using generative AI technology, using agentic AI technology, because they believe, that's where the money should be invested right now. But not always. So you got to remember that AI as a technology is only going to have specific applications where it's able to provide value. And I've seen those applications firsthand, and they're tremendously valuable to the business. In some cases, they could be a game changer for the business, but not each and every time. And by spending more money to solve problems using AI, each and every time, we're going to be taking resources from other areas of the company that the businesses would be able to invest, including other AI systems. So the strategic use of investment and investing in the right problems that we're looking to solve with AI is absolutely going to be an imperative right now. So take a look at the table I'm putting up on the screen right now. So the table makes it clear that each step from traditional systems to generative AI to agentic AI introduces a sharp increase in both build and ongoing operating costs. Now, we knew that, but I don't think people really kind of understood how much of a multiplier that those costs were. In fact, many people who I talked to, I would ask them, is it cheaper for me to build a system using traditional components or build a system using AI components, generative AI components or agentic AI components? And the most common answer I would get would be it's about the same, or it's going to be cheaper to build the AI systems. And I knew from my years as being an AI architect and building these damn things, they're always going to be more expensive. That's just the reality of it. Now, there may be a business reason in terms of why we're going to build them, because it's returning more value back to the business based on the capabilities of AI, planning, analytics, demand cost forecasting, all that kind of stuff that AI is really good at. But if those solutions are not there, it's typically not going to be needed, and you're paying a premium for a system that won't be leveraging AI in a way that's going to bring value back. So traditional development with a standard database is the lowest cost option and works well when processes are stable, but it offers no intelligence beyond what you explicitly design. That's absolutely the case. Now, when we build the traditional systems, we're just building things on simple logic. If then else, go here, go there, carry out functions, analyze things, do so in a very static way. AI systems are by definition going to be dynamic. So it's going to take more time, take more technology, more money, more brain power, more talent to build these systems that are in essence going to have a behavior that's going to be modified over a long period of time. Now, not getting into the ins and outs of what an AI system is, it's going to cost more money. And so you have to look at the needs of the business. Now, many traditional business applications that are transactional in nature, inventory control, sales order entry systems, things like that, are typically not going to be a good use of AI because they do fairly simple things, and we're able to carry out the solutions to these problems using static-based development, where static processes, static behaviors are going to be an outcome of that, not AI, which is by definition going to be a dynamic behavior. It's going to change over time as it learns and builds its model and rebuilds its model and tunes itself and, all the things that AI systems do. So moving to a generative AI enhanced system adds natural language querying and smarter insights, but you pay for a noticeable premium for LLMs, vector stores, and specialized skills. So where does the money go? Well, it goes into lots of areas. Number one, if we're leveraging, AI-specific tools, for example, the tools from AWS, the tools from Microsoft, the tools from Google, they cost more. The services cost more. That's just the reality of it. And you can go out and look on the cloud providers today, which are going to be a, very good cost indicator of what we're paying for these tools. You see the cost differences out there versus traditional tools. Leveraging an LLM such as ChatGPT, leveraging vector storage, and leveraging other systems that are going to be more complex in building these environments. Also, you need talented people. You need AI engineers. You need AI architects like myself. You need database specialists, data scientists, things like that are able to make a lot of these decisions to pull off what AI systems should be capable of pulling off. So as you can see in the table, Agentic AI introduces the highest cost tier because it's designed not just to answer questions, but to autonomously execute parts of the operations. And so really autonomous systems, agentic AI systems are going to be distributed to AI, where each of these components, each of these agents is able to carry out an autonomous function. The way I like to explain it to my students, imagine a company where you hire a CFO, you hire a CEO, you hire a salesperson, you hire a marketing person. Every one of those functions can be an agent. They carry out a certain role within the organization, in this case, a company. AI agents do basically the same thing. So by definition, they're going to carry out many of the same functions as a generative AI system, but they're going to do so in a different way, but they're also going to do so in a much more complex way, and therefore it's going to cost you more money. Again, more talent and more skills are needed to pull this stuff off, and not a lot of people are successful with agentic AI these days. Obviously, much of the technology out there is first generation technology, but there's not a lot of people running around who know how to build and deploy these systems. So the benefit curve changes from simple process automation, which is the traditional approach, to intelligent systems, which is the generative AI approach, to actual work automation and orchestration, which is the agentic AI approach. And that's the best way to explain it. So you're getting basically good enough, better use of intelligence, which is going to be a generative AI system, to dynamic and distributed use of intelligence, which is really what the agentic AI systems are going to be built. And all of them function. In other words, all of them are able to carry out a successful solution to the problems we're looking to solve, but they're doing so at different price points, but they're also doing so at different business benefits that you get when you look at applying these different technologies. Now, again, just so we're clear, I'm not pushing back on the value of AI. I know it's going to have value in many cases, and it's going to have a business value that's going to make building a system using generative AI or agentic AI very attractive and really kind of a good business decision. But it's not every time. And you should really look at the problems you're looking to solve and then figure out, how can I solve this problem with the least amount of money? And I think that's what I'm pushing here. So because both generative AI and agentic AI are substantially more expensive than traditional systems, they only make sense when they deliver measurable improvements in cost, revenue, or risk reduction. Again, it's the "it depends" question, that answer that consultants give, that drives everybody nuts, but that's the answer. So in other words, should I use generative AI on my inventory application, which is the model system I use for this exercise? It depends. It depends on what the inventory system is doing. You need demand planning, forecasting. You need least cost inventory management, where AI functions may have a legitimate use for those things. You have to look at the specific problems that you're looking to solve. You have to look at the business case. And I know people hate that answer, but it's the right answer. And so in many cases, if you're not asking yourself those questions, you're going to be over applying, which we're seeing today, generative AI and agentic AI to solve business problems that are very solvable using traditional technology, which is going to be way less expensive. So enterprises must rigorously compare the incremental cost of AI against the incremental value versus a robust non-AI solution, instead of assuming AI is the default choice. And that's what I'm seeing right now, which is a little concerning to me. You're going to a cloud conference, you're going to an app dev conference, you're going to conferences that were very much around traditional application development and traditional technology deployment. It's all generative AI and agentic AI now. In fact, it's mostly all agentic AI. All the cloud conferences I'm going to are basically agentic AI conferences. And if you're talking to people, they're trying to set their expectations up in terms of what technology they should be leveraging. The enterprises who are going to these conferences and reading publications, even watching this podcast YouTube channel. And they're over applying what they're hearing the most of. So all they're hearing is agentic, and then everything's going to look like a nail because they only have a hammer. And you're going out on the conference floor, it's all agentic AI, agentic-based cloud services, native AI cloud services, and many of the clouds that are being built. It's systemically becoming a part of much of the technology that we leverage and much of the culture that we're working in. So it becomes the default answer. And it can't become the de facto answer, because no way is AI going to be applicable in every business problem out there. There's going to be a small subset where generative AI is going to add lots more value. That's why you want to use it, and agentic as well. But it's being over applied because people, just kind of believe, based on how everybody is acting, and they're moving along with the crowds, that AI is going to be the answer to all of their business problems, all of the IT problems that we have. And it's not. You can certainly solve problems with any kind of technology out there, traditional generative AI and agentic AI. It's all going to work, but it depends on how much money you're willing to pay. And that's my argument here. So the overreaching conclusion is that organizations need a disciplined, quantified business case for AI, especially agentic AI, or they risk building impressive but economically unsustainable systems. Can't stress that enough. It seems a fairly simple thing to me, having done this for a long period of time. I've been an enterprise architect, a service-oriented architecture. I built microservice-based systems, Kubernetes, container-based systems, all these things over the years, and many, many AI systems. And it always came down to us backing the appropriate technology into the business problems we're looking to solve. And that seems to be not necessarily consideration anymore. And you got to remember that businesses, certainly IT departments, don't have piles of money sitting around. So they have to use their money in the most optimized way. So let's not spend it on systems where AI is going to be a force fit, specifically in the fact it's going to remove more resources than traditional approaches. And also understand that it's going to cost more money. I think in many cases, it's kind of assumed out there that, AI, generative AI, and certainly agentic AI and traditional systems are going to be less expensive, if not just equal to traditional environments. And that's not the case, as you can see in the table. And that's pretty much a realistic depiction of my experiences and also the data that I can find out there. It's always going to be more expensive. Now, that doesn't mean it's not always going to be not worth it. In many cases, it's the appropriate thing to do, but you have to make sure it's the appropriate thing to do. I don't know why that's a hard concept, but I think many people out there are missing that. So enterprises must stop treating generative AI and agentic AI as inevitable upgrades and start treating them as an optional investment competing with every other use of capital out there. I can't stress that enough. In other words, it's an option. It's not mandatory. So these systems are demonstrably more expensive than traditional inventory applications, as we saw in our table, and both to build and to run, which means the justification has to be equally strong. So the right question is never, can we use AI here? But will AI here outperform a simpler, cheaper approach on business outcomes that we can measure? In other words, using traditional technology. So those who build disciplined business cases will capture real value. Those who don't will accumulate impressive but unsustainable technical experiments and also technical debt. So heed this message. If anything comes out of here, this is not an anti-AI message. I've been an AI architect for as long as I can remember, and I've been working with AI technology since the 80s. Here, it's the proper use of the technology. So it's the ability, it's horses for courses, the ability to apply the technology where it's going to have the most benefit. And that's all really I'm saying here. You guys may agree and disagree with that. I'd love to hear in your comments. Maybe you think I'm off base. Even if you disagree with some of the figures and approaches I had in the model that I put up, that's fine. But let me know if you have another idea. Let me know if there's something I'm missing here. So don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. Also check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn Learning courses, and of course, my Generative AI Architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers. And finally, my latest books, Unlocking the Power of Cloud and An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, stay very, very safe. The magical YouTube algorithm thinks this is another one of my videos that you should watch next. Take care.